Okay, so how's everybody doing today? My name is Joe Lavia, and I'm going to present today a webinar on filters for MEP, a project necessity. So I'm curious, how many people in the webinar here um, actually utilize filters in their day-to-day workflow in Revit? This is definitely awesome, we got one. This is definitely something that we do encourage, and this is something that I'll definitely say that over the years when I first started in Revit versus where I'm at now, two totally different things. And once I've adopted utilizing some of these workflows with filters and such, it has definitely helped with that specific ROI we all talk about saving time and making things a little bit more manageable and such. So just to kind of go through, again, I'm Joe Lavia. I'm a senior MEP technical specialist. I've got a little bit different background than some. I came from more of a school where I went and actually obtained a drafting degree rather than an engineering or a PM type of degree. So I started in drafting is kind of where I initially come from. So been on the MEP side quite a bit, and have worked on both the design and on the VDC side. So you're going to see some filters and some information based upon my experience from the industry and what we've done in different locations that I've worked at in the past. So just to kind of reiterate a little bit of what we're going through, we're going to go over some of the basics on creating Revit filters for MEP, and we're gonna dive into some of those actions there, and we're going to break down some of the pre-planning and some of the information that you need to know in order to create that filter. Filters are, as I can't stress much more, filters are very important, especially when you're working with, let's say, multiple systems and on a larger project and such like that. I'll definitely talk quite a bit about those different filtering systems and some of those aspects that we look for. Some of our learning objectives today are going to be to explain the reason for us using filters in Revit MEP. That's highly important. Also, I want to break down the basics of planning for a filter. That means a lot. I will by far tell you that means a lot. And when I'm talking about planning for a filter, I specifically mean making sure your Revit environment is kind of ready to go. These are some back-end standards we're going to discuss in pre-planning for a filter. I'm going to walk through creating a new filter, and then I am going to explain additional types of filtering options. So just so you guys are aware, here at ATG USA, we work with CTC, and we sell one of their actual productivity packs. So we sell the MEP productivity pack, and we work with some of the tools. Within that MEP productivity pack, there are filtering options out there that are definitely looked at a little bit more for the advanced user, and they look at additional alternatives with filters and utilizing view templates and work sets. So you'll hear some of that information as we kind of dive into this as well. All right, so let's hop into Revit here and see what we can get our hands on. All right. Okay, so this is my Revit environment. Just kind of to go over a little bit of what we're looking at here in Revit. This is just one of my standard projects I utilize for training. This is from a previous client I was working with, and we, over the course of 24 hours of training, we set up this project. We went over the basics of setup to creating view templates, creating some minor filter filters and adjusting the filters on the fly, as well as basic setup and basic modeling skills. So that's what we're looking at here. All right, so you could see from my project browser, I've got a whole slew of different views and everything along those lines already pre-created. Got some sheets and everything along those lines as well. And then I've got in my actual view itself, I've got some duct work. So if I select this duct right here, this duct is going to be our supply air duct work. And if I dive into this other duct here, we got return air. And at the top here, you're going to see I have exhaust, right? So as I start to look at some of these pieces of duct work, there's also some piping floating around here. So I got domestic hot. I've also got a vent line, and I've got an undefined line. All basic, out-of-the-box Revit stuff, so nothing out of the ordinary, anything along those lines. So just to kind of go through this and really take a look at what we have here. When we start talking about filters, we gotta understand what can filters do for us, specifically us guys in MEP, because normally we're late on a project because of course the architect and the structure, they've got all their stuff that they got to pre-plan and do and everything like that. So after they've started their development points, we then get the project and we don't necessarily get that extra time. We've got to make do in the limited amount of time that we have. Okay. Which means we have to put Revit to better use as MEP than maybe some other disciplines out there, because they have that flexibility. They're not confined to producing a CD set or a DD set within 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, maybe at best for design. So we have to make good use of what we have for our environment. So looking at how to function with filters and make filters the best use. My suggestion, definitely make sure, here we go. Make sure when we're looking at filters, you've got your work sets set up. So keep in mind, in order to have work sets set up, you'll definitely set yourself up for work sharing, and you'll get yourself set up for collaboration, especially if you're working with multiple people. But make sure you got work sets set up, okay? So that way you've got that extra layer of protection and everything along those lines when you're trying to organize your drawings. On top of that, you'll want to make sure as well that you've got your view templates out here set up. View templates are also highly important. I mean, you can see some of the different view templates I have here, and this is strictly more along the lines just for the design world. When I step into VDC and I'm doing trade coordination and such on a construction side of the project, I'm going to have a different setup of view templates. I will say the benefit of view templates and the benefit of kind of setting yourself up here with filters as well is you can carry those from project to project, literally right through the transfer project standards option up here. So if we dive into transfer project standards, I can see I can carry view templates, and then I can also carry filters from project to project. They're highly important and they're highly used. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility in the realm of what we're looking at. So when it comes to looking at filters, obviously within our view templates here, we've got a whole slew of different view templates. There is a visual graphics override for filters out here, and this is where we're going to adjust some of our filters, right? So you can see I've got a whole bunch of different out-of-the-box filters. I've got filters that allow me the option here to come in and maybe if I wanted to, I can adjust the color of that specific duct type, or maybe that specific piping type, whether it's plumbing or mechanical piping. I can also override some of my line patterns here as well. So it gives me some of that flexibility out there also. And then I can adjust the line weight. So if you've got something maybe that needs a little bit heavier for that one specific instance, this is where I would suggest you come in and you adjust some of that information for that specific instance, right? If you're looking to encompass maybe all of your piping in general, or all of your mechanical supply across the board, there are alternative options built within Revit to where you can either take a look at the object styles, or you can go into that system and within the type properties of that system, you can adjust some of this information out a little bit further. So that way you're doing a type scenario instead of an instance scenario. Those parameter things that we like to talk about on occasion. Also, from this standpoint as well, this is where we can dive in, and we can even take a look and see what we have for rule-based filters, right? So we have a whole slew of out-of-the-box Revit filters, okay? And this is where we're going to make our adjustments, all right? So when we talk about making our adjustments and going through and really playing with our filters in general, I'm gonna actually exit out of this. We can actually come into our view tab here on the ribbon, go to our graphics panel, select filters, and this is what we can see. We can get back to that same screen that we were in as if we went through our visual graphics override into our filters through our view template. So this is where we can come, we can play with all of our different filters in general. When I dive into new right here, so keep in mind I got new as an option. I can duplicate, I can rename, and I can delete. Kind of like setting up view templates. I got some of those functionality, right? So when I'm looking at a view template, if I wanted to come in here and I wanted to create a new view template, so we'll call this filter 1, just leave it what it is, right? Now I can take a look and I can dive into my model categories to see exactly what I'm looking to accomplish here, right? So you can see here, we got our air terminals. So say I wanted to have all my air terminals one specific way or whatnot, I have that functionality. I've even got things like my assemblies out here. I can scroll down further and I've got different line patterns. For some of you guys who are on the architect side of the world, this would be some of your travel lines and everything along those lines. So you have some functionality and such, but you're working specifically with more your model categories that you have out here. Okay. So if we were adjusting, say, just air terminals in general, our next step of the filter process is going to be the and or the or option, okay, for this rule. Okay, so we can see air terminals for our filter 1 selected right here as our first option. Now, when I do the second pull down here, now I'm looking at actual parameters within air terminals. So these are some of those instance parameters that we can come through and we can adjust. Okay, so you can set something based upon work sets. So if you have a specific work set on, so say you've got a work set designed for, and I've done this once or twice, a work set designed for new construction, and then a secondary work set designed for an add option per se. You can actually adjust your filter to turn that on or turn that off according to that specific work set that's on or off within your view. Okay, so you get some flexibility out there, and this is where when you dive in further with view templates and with work sets and everything along those lines, there are whole ways in which to manipulate and adjust your views, especially when you start adding in things like point clouds and you're linking in maybe an NWC file versus having that extra Revit file and stuff like that. So you get that flexibility out here. But based on kind of what I'm seeing here, And based on how I'm looking at this, when we start talking about some of the basics of filters, the one aspect that I highly suggest is, depending on which type of service you're working with. So this is obviously going to be air terminals. When we dive through here, these are specifically the options that we have. So if you're trying to control something, maybe add to add, or so on and so forth, and turn on, turn off. If you start looking at system abbreviations, system classification, system name, and system type, those are specific elements that you need to think about. How is your system set up here in Revit? So this is that back end piece of information in your standard that you need to take care of prior to being able to successfully create this filter, right? So you're not going to create, and I'll show you this here now, you're not going to create an actual filter based on an abbreviation when your exhaust system doesn't actually have a system abbreviation. You'll actually have to come into your duct system, come out here, adjust your abbreviation for exhaust air in order for you to go in and properly be able to adjust and add a filter based upon the system abbreviation. Okay. So now when it comes to diving into our filters again, now if I look back at my filter, so back to filter 1, remove duct. Okay, I got a second here. Check me. So if I'm looking at duct in general specifically, and I'm looking at my system abbreviation, now I can say equals, and then I have a pull down option here for E-A. All right, so that's a filter that's already built out here now. I can come right on in and I can go find my filter 1. All right, and I can now manipulate that to turn some of that on, some of that off, right? So that's essentially thinking out and working with your exhaust and working with filters in general. Keep in mind there's 2 ways, just like I showed you. Hang on a second. I can access this through the view template by selecting this edit/new, and this is where I can come out here and I can adjust. So you see I've got this this filter 1 right here. Well, as we saw when I turned that off, it didn't necessarily capture everything. So I've got duct, but I didn't have my duct fittings go away with that. Okay, so those will be some additional items that I would add, so that way I can turn those on and turn those off, right? So now if I come out here and I turn off filter 1, which is dedicated towards my exhaust, I can now go that route and adjust my filter for being on or being off, and it takes everything associated with it within the model categories in order to do that. So if I actually come here and I start removing all this stuff here, because I've got a bunch of random items out here, I can now add my filter 1. Okay, that gives me some of my flexibility there. But then I can also come in here and I can create a filter 2. And the filter 2, I will essentially come down here. I'm going to select my duct again. I'll select my duct accessories. And this is a quick roundabout way of doing things. Come out to my abbreviations and select the does not equal aspect, right? So now I selected my EA for exhaust air, and I'm going to add that filter 2 now to this drawing, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my filter 1, which is my exhaust air, but leave my filter 2 on. So what this is going to do is it's going to turn off my exhaust air, and it's going to leave on all my other air options that would be set up accordingly. So when I refer to that, that means come into supply air, adjust supply air, add that abbreviation, S-A. And then this one right here, this will be return air, going back in, same aspect, return air. So you get some of these aspects that you can play with, but then when you're going through the process, you also have that ability when you start building out your content to dive in and fill in some of these other type properties. You can fill in additional comments, maybe a comment based upon maybe your spec section you're working with, add your images, have a description out here as well. You can build all that information in your actual your properties for your duct. Same with coming out here and looking at your type mark, looking at your assembly codes and so on and so forth. Different comments. So you have options to create filters based on those comments and such. Those are some of the extra little items that allow you to manipulate your drawings and get those views set up exactly the way you need them for those specific scenarios. Now, when it comes to something along the lines of kind of where I'm at with creating some of my views that I'm working on for, say, VDC, or just doing some on the fly type of work once we get out of CD phase, when I'm in the design house working for an MEP firm instead of a contractor. I like to set up view templates dedicated towards my exhaust air, my return air, and my supply air. Same with when we come down to the domestic world, when it comes into domestic piping, sanitary and storm, and then that whole process that we have out here. I use those items to manipulate based upon how I need to see things. So having that manipulation option out there in order for me to separate those out means if I'm working in, say, a pack model, or I like to call them spaghetti models on occasion, having view templates with the designated filters already accustomed and set up out here allows me that ability at that point to only see that one specific system. So if I'm making a bend, or if I have to get below a large trunk line or something flowing down a hallway and do that coordination, I have that option and I'm not tripping over other systems. We all know, especially when it comes to duct and piping, that we can only turn on and off in our model categories the piping aspect. So we can turn pipes on and off. We can't adjust their system. That's why we have to have those filters. Same with duct. So that's why we take the time to come in here, set some of this information up, and give us some of that flexibility. Now, when I was talking to you guys about having some of those additional parameters out here, this is where now we have work sets. We see we have work sets. We have URL information. We have type name, type mark, type comments, IFC GUID. We've got some of that information out here, even manufacturing and such like that. We get the option at that point to take some of these extra views that maybe we're used to producing in the CAD world back in the day, where we just put on, we do a quick layer, but now we can take these extra views and take our actual families and everything that we have, build them out to that level, to where now we can send out maybe a set of drawings or maybe a view specifically on a sheet that says we're following this manufacturer, we're working with these specific pipes in this general area. It has this description, maybe this cost, maybe this comment, or maybe this type of assembly. So it allows you to really get very precise in what you're producing. So, and that's the idea of what we're looking at when it comes to filters. Now with the filter aspect as well out here, so I'm going to kick these filters out. And I'm going to add specifically my exhaust, return, and supply. If I'm looking at just exhaust, I can come in here and you can see now, where is my just exhaust air? I'll flip that to exhaust. So now you can see I turn off that exhaust air, but if I come through and, oh, so here we go. All right. 1 second here. So if I turn off just that exhaust air, in this case, I get some flexibility and I can play around with that. Now, if I come back into the filters, I turn on my exhaust and turn off my supply and return air, you can see simple way of playing around with that. On top of that, if we're looking for things in the visual realm, another option is coming out here and you can override your graphics. So this is one other thing that I have not showed you guys at this point. Now we can get some of that fluctuation. But I can't stress to you guys enough to make sure that when it comes to the systems you guys are using, when it comes to types of duct, types of pipe systems, to other aspects around Revit, when it comes to maybe the electrical side of the world, if you're trying to organize, say, an add alternate option, or you're trying to organize other various scenarios that come up, filters can be your best friend. Just going through, making sure you build out some of that standard information a little bit more will go a long way. So I'd like to open it up for questions at this point. So I know I see a couple of you guys in here that I recognize that I know use filters. What ideas? Drop some ideas. Drop some alternatives in the chat here. Let us know what questions you guys might have, so on and so forth. Okay. I'm seeing some people here. And if you guys are interested as well, okay, so I've got something, I got a chat out here. So it says, speaking of those spaghetti models, I find that I shaded views with no outlines tend to be the best for rendering things quickly. However, I was wondering if there was a filter for translucent objects. That is a good question. When you're looking at manipulating the view and some of those senses, you're going in. So I'm going to go down to my coordination here in my view template. I like to go in and I like to take a look, and I'll set my model display up, and now I can go with shading. I can go with consistent colors and everything along those lines. To get that transparency, I'll add that transparency where needed. And then that will give me the ability to kind of see a little bit of everything that's going on there. So I can then use my filters to manipulate and turn some of that on and off. And depending on what you guys are producing for plot, in the construction world, when I was working with an EC on the construction side, we would actually plot in color and send that back to our fab department. So that gave us a little bit of flexibility when we were separating out systems for conduit, by having that transparency. That way I can see the multiple colors and send that off. So I hope that answers the question. If not, definitely feel free to let me know, and we can dive into that a little further. I do see another question here. Can you use filters on linked models from the architect as well? So when it comes to linked models, the architect model specifically, we can't necessarily dive into filters. What we can do is we can adjust. So say you're working on the plumbing aspect, and you want to see all their fixtures outside just that standard white, because everything is white in an architect model. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to come down to plumbing fixtures, and I can adjust the overrides of the whole category. But as for breaking that down into plumbing fix, or breaking that down into a situation where we can separate some of that stuff out, I don't believe we have that option. But that would be something I would highly suggest. Maybe going on the Autodesk forum and throwing that out there. There may be somebody who found a way, or maybe a Dynamo script or something along those lines. So I see another one here. It says, why not design use options? Why not? So why not design use options? When you're saying why not design use options, what I'm struggling to kind of understand what specifically are you referring to? Okay. So if you want to kind of dive into that a little bit further, when you're saying why not design use options, design does, okay, so I think I'm hearing it right. So design does use some of these options. Oh, so design, using design options as the tool. So when it comes to design options, when we start diving in here, it is a tool that people do utilize, and it's one that I've utilized in the past on a couple Revit projects. However, I've worked with certain models where design options, especially when you've got guys who are coming in that are a little bit newer and doing some drafting for you, it can be tricky for them to get an understanding of what design option they may need to be on. I mean, think about it like this. We've got, in our sense, we've got view templates we're working with, we've got filters we're working with, and we've got work sets we're working with on the average project. Until those guys are comfortable with some of those basic things, like change your work set when you're working in mechanical and going back and forth between mechanical and plumbing. Design option is another element we're adding to that list for them to do. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done. I've done it successfully. I've been part of projects where we've done it unsuccessfully. But it's definitely another option out there with newer guys that by my standpoint is just troublesome for some of them. And then on average as well, if that was a regular project type that I was doing, any day of the week, design options would be perfect. But with some of the places I come from in the past, design options were one of those that we would see a project once a year maybe that would have those additional design options. So it is a great tool. Just getting everybody up to snuff in it is what I've found to be a little bit more troublesome. Any other questions? Okay. So and guys, I know there's a couple of you guys out here. I know one at least one BIM manager, another CM out here. Feel free to throw some insight in the chat as well, and everybody take a look at the chat also, because we got some smart minds on the call. I can tell you that right now. And then yeah, feel free to ask any other questions. And while we're doing that, so you guys can see here while I'm kind of diving through. This isn't fully set up. I'm working on setting this one up a little bit further and readjusting and everything along those lines. But you can see just how I set some of these views up with my view templates that I'm bringing across. And this is why this is really something specific that I like to go through, especially with new hires and with a lot of my training classes, to make sure that they understand we're specifically trying to see multiple aspects of a project. In fact, I'm working with one of our attendees on here on a project that we're doing VDC on right now. And by having some of these other options out here for view templates and then having their designated filters out there, what that's allowing us to do is when we have to make an adjustment, specifically elevation, when it comes to like underground and getting around, say a footing and getting around maybe piles or getting underneath that mass bank of conduit, having these extra drawings here or having these extra views and these view templates, and then having the filters that are out here designated to that allows us to go in, set up our crosshairs, get our orthographic view in play. And then from that point, what we'll do is we'll then be able to speed up that process. And that's really what we're trying to do, speed up that specific process to going through and moving that pipe. So say moving that up 2 feet or maybe 1.5 feet and dropping that elbow in there and so on and so forth. So that's really, that's one of the aspects that we're trying to work on and that we can utilize and do. That's one of the workflows when it comes to scenarios such as having excess view templates and filters in order to get around some of those aspects. All right, so I'm not seeing any additional questions. I'm going to kick over to our other slide here. Let's see here. So just to kind of reiterate some of what we've gone over, we've gone through filters and the reason for filters in Revit MEP. So obviously, as we discussed, a lot of our systems, whether it's mechanical, electrical, or plumbing, they have subsystems to the overall system. For duct, for piping, for conduit, we have subsystems. So that's where filters come into play and make our workflows a little bit more efficient. We also broke down some of the basics of planning out a filter. Planning out a filter meaning making sure you go into those systems that you created, whether it's conduit, duct, or piping, and making sure that you've answered all that information. And then looking and creating a new filter. So we created 2 new filters, the filter 1, filter 2 for exhaust air. One was exhaust air, one was, as I refer to, not exhaust air. So you have some of that flexibility there. And then explain some additional types of filters for modeling and such. And that would be utilizing some of the other parameters for your filters in order to manipulate your views. So if you guys find yourself having any questions or any concerns, feel free to give us a call. Feel free to message us. I'm on LinkedIn. We have an ATG LinkedIn page. Feel free to get on LinkedIn. And on our LinkedIn ATG page, you'll see all the updated events coming up. So at this hour specifically, we had an event at noon for civil as well. And I believe we're going to have another one around 2 o'clock also. So you'll see us majority of Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll have webinars just about every week. So definitely check us out. Also get on our website, atg.com or atgusa.com. And when you get into the website, we've got blogs, we've got white papers, we've got some of our YouTube videos on there. We have a link to our YouTube site, which has more instructional videos and everything along those lines. And then feel free to inquire about the MEP3. For you guys who are kind of learning and developing right now, the MEP3, MEP Productivity Pack by CTC is a great way to bring in something that already has all of those systems developed for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So those duct systems, piping systems, and conduit systems I was talking about. All those are already developed. And then there's a whole slew of different filters and work sets and also view templates already created in there as well to get you guys up and running instead of having to spend countless hours, 6 months to a year, sitting there trying to build on the back end in order to make sure that you're able to manipulate those views and not have to do a full development in the process. So feel free to get in touch. Our phone number there for sales and everything is out there. If you guys are looking for training, looking for anybody else to do some training for you guys because you're stacked for work, if you're looking for overflow on project work, whether it's design or whether it's coordination, we do some of that. I'm actively working on projects as well as training and everything as well. So any day of the week, feel free to get in contact with us. We're always here for you. So I want to thank everybody for attending today and taking precious time out of your day. I know it's January. I know the project loads are back. And with COVID kind of doing its own little thing, we're seeing more projects dropped on our lap. So definitely get in touch and we're here for you. So thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to y'all later.